Um, we have some delegations. Kim Drescher, Sunshine Coast WildSafeBC, our community coordinator, presentation for 2013. Thank you.
Here today. Much appreciated. Just want to start off by thanking you, our very special sponsor, and to the infrastructure department, specifically Jeremy Valeriot, for submitting the application and all the support they've provided. The staff here is amazing and always helpful. And also we had some partnership again with the planning department. We co-hosted a really highly successful electric fencing workshop this year, so that was a major goal. So WildSafe, it's all new this year. It was launched in May. It's based on the successful bearware model, and program delivery did remain the same, but it evolved to include other species as well as just the black bears in our neighborhoods. So we now have brochures that cover coyote, cougar, and deer. We also had a new website this year, wildsafebc.com, that people could access. And even on the front page of that, they could still access downloadable PDF versions of our brochures. So a lot of public accessibility to important factual information. Our motto remained the same: to reduce human-wildlife conflict in communities through education, innovation, and cooperation. And the motto is keeping our wildlife wild and our communities safe. Next year, it's going to be working towards, our website's also going to be working towards 4 other areas in our lives that bring us into close proximity with wildlife. So we'll be focusing on areas such as live, work, play, and grow in our communities as our 4 themes. So I was kept pretty busy this year due to the addition of other species. So in relation to last year, where I had about 560 black bear calls that came in, the increased workload, including other species, now worked out to about 850 calls, and that was between January and October 29th. Black bear calls, of course, still being the highest reason for calls and conflict here on the Sunshine Coast. They were up to about 627 of those 853 calls between January and October of this year. So my delivery continued in the form of door-to-door canvassing, garbage tagging. I did a curbside data collection survey once more, and was happy to report that the residences I visited last year, if they had the garbage out night before pickup or some attractant issues, I would either leave information, do some door-to-door canvassing, or some garbage tagging. This year, when I did the same 4 neighborhoods, the compliance rate was 99 to 100%, which was great. Presentations were great. Media, we also ventured into social media this year, so we were allowed to actually have our own community Facebook page. I found this actually the Sunshine Coast was the highest one and the most used one, probably because of the vast area we live in. This is how we communicate here. So it was a great way to deliver information that was in real time and community related, specific to our areas. I just wanted to point out the one post. A prime example was the cougar sighting in June in Gibsons. I posted the alert and information about cougar biology behavior and what to do should an encounter occur. And there were 5,078 views and 98 shares of this post. So it's a very fast and effective way of getting important information out to the community. Our website still had a sightings map on it. This one was called WARP, or the Wildlife Reporting Program. It's getting up to speed with the map on the bearware site. You basically focus in on your area, on the species, what types of attractants, and it gives you some idea of what's out there. So it's all about know before you go. It's knowing what's in your neighborhoods, so you can prepare yourself should encounters occur. Community support was also shown this year in the formation of some more volunteers, and also the formation that we now have a bear advisory group. We've renamed ourselves the Wildlife Focus Group. However, we will be working towards Bear Smart status. That's a provincial government designation, and very, very effective. It's by eliminating the attractants for bears, you're going to find that also eliminates a lot of the conflict that happens with other species also. So some of the challenges this year and with other communities continues to be the poor refuse management. I won't get into it. It's all in the report. Some of the good motivators, though, are when I'm called out by the conservation officers or I get calls to myself, I'll do some door-to-door with people. There's two motivators. One is when I can actually spend time with people, we can address their specific needs or challenges they're having on their properties, figure out ways to deter wildlife and reduce the conflict, and they will usually make the change. Like I say, humans can change their behavior, animals can't. The second primary motivator, though, is enforcement. So there are people that there's complacency that exists, and they really will not change anything. But it's amazing, when I worked with the town of Gibson's bylaw officer, that one letter saying there's a $100 fine coming up that will be enforced, it changes overnight like magic. So there's two motivators for people. So there were about, when I wrote this was between January and October 29th, there were about 12 black bears that had to be destroyed here on the Sunshine Coast. And one cub of the year was relocated to critter care. The sow was killed in a roadside collision. And it'll be brought back here to the Sunshine Coast to be released early in 2014. And we had one cougar destroyed in Gibson's in June. Just wanted to point out that's, a relatively high number when I was comparing, ourselves, say, to Whistler, which is actually a bear smart area. During that time when we had 12, they'd only had about 4 that were destroyed at that point in time, and one of them was a wildlife collision. So, it's hard to stress, whether we're making progress or not on those kind of figures, because I sincerely do believe we have been making progress. The community has really bought into this program. A lot of people I talk to are really changing and making efforts to manage their attractants. A friend of mine who was, she works for the North Shore Black Bear Society and had a booth one day at Canada Day there, and she was impressed and had to call me how many Sunshine Coast residents actually came up to her to tell her how they were bear aware and what they were doing to manage their attractants. So the messaging does get out there slowly and steadily and surely. So thanks for your support on that. So highlights for this year it was really good to start out the year by getting the program back, and also getting some additional funding from some community partners. We got some funding from House Sound Pulp and Paper, Lehigh Materials, and also the Sunshine Coast Rod and Gun Club. So another great effort showing community support. And some of my goals, before I get to the stats really quickly, looking for some coast-wide consistency, really targeting the residential bins, trying to see if there's some way or somehow that, bear-resistant, at least, containers could be brought in, which could be used effectively for the garbage and the proposed curbside organics pickup. Commercial dumpsters, working towards elimination of plastic-lidded bins. There are still some out there, not just for recycling. And, trying to, eventually phase some bins in that have the metal bins that have the lock bar. The only flaw with that is that people have to close the lid and put up the lock bar, but it's very effective. Still, coast-wide consistency in parks and recreational bear-proofing bins would be great. Centralized household drop-off areas for people that are visiting the coast. A lot of issues happen with people that are just here for a short term of time. They leave before the garbage pickup day, they leave it out. There's nowhere for them to actually leave it legally. So that causes a bit of an issue and concern for the residents that actually live there full time. Bylaws, I'd like to see some coast-wide consistency in some of the bylaws as well. Or even just initiating, I'm going to work with District of Seashelt bylaw officer. She's really, really interested in initiating a wildlife attractant bylaw, which is your broad brush and covers everything. The Bear Advisory Committee, we're going to continue to work. We're going to work on a human bear conflict management plan and continue working towards the goal of attaining Bear Smart status for one of our communities. With that, it would be great to see an update of the Bear Hazard Assessment, which was done in 2006. And working in the schools this year, one of the grades I've noticed that are really receptive to this program are the grades 4 or 5. So I'd like to sort of set up a program for the Sunshine Coast WildSafeBC program to hit 1 grade. I won't catch them all, but it gives me more time, with my limited hours to get out at that point to every school. And a few little stats. So for the area of Gibson's, that was the highest one with the highest number of calls. It was a total call of 350 calls, and that's right up until yesterday, December 4th, between January and December 4th. 264 bear calls. So Gibson's is a pretty busy place for black bears. The second highest was, of course, the District of Seashelt with 295 total calls. 240 of those were, of course, black bear calls. And coming in third was Roberts Creek. So one of the rural areas was Roberts Creek with 127 calls, and that included 94 bear calls. Half Moon Bay was only 72 total calls, and Pender Harbor was 67. So the rural areas are less. I do focus a lot of my time between Gibsons and Seashell. That being said, really like to thank all of you again for such great support of this program, and I'm hopefully under my 10 minutes. So you can, any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer for you.
Thank you very much. Any
You're welcome.
questions? Director Turnbull.
We have a couple of points. One is to note on page 11 in your report, you talk about this garbage issue that we have, where we have people who are leaving the coast and they've got garbage and they have nowhere that they're allowed to put it. So they get creative, and we know that. So I'm hoping we can look at that as a solution this year. The other, it depends. It's somewhat of a minor point, except that on page 14, when you're talking about Gibsons, what you've done, I believe, is included E and F, which are rural areas, which pay you separately in funding. So what I would like to know is if you can break down your stats. I'm assuming that Gibsons is including areas E and F. And because there aren't any for areas F, which includes West Howe Sound, it goes all the way down to Port Mellon, McNabb, Keats, Gambier, and area E on Elphinstone is on the other side of Gibsons between Roberts Creek and Gibsons.
Yeah, so your Gibsons area, you're correct. It does include Langdale, Port Mellon, and Grantham's Landing. Seashell includes Wilson Cree, Davis Bay, and West Seashell, and Half Moon Bay includes Secret Cove.
And so all those ones in West Howe Sound are not in the town of Gibsons, and it would be really helpful for me to know where the problem areas are.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Excellent report. And, oh, sorry, Director Sherry.
Yeah, I just have one question. I did attend the electric fencing workshop, which was fabulous. But I have a question that I asked, and I have not yet had an answer to. I didn't ask you, I asked one of our staff. In 2012, the rural areas gave a grant and aid to the Bearware people for an electric fencing workshop.
I was Bearware 2012. I did not receive it.
We did give a grant. It might not have been 2012 then. Never saw that workshop on the ground. And then this year there was funding from planning for the electric fencing workshop. And I did ask for the grant and aid that we had given previously to be hunted down and find out where that money went.
Yeah.
I'd rather it got utilized for the appropriate purpose than to actually fund it again through planning. So I don't know who would take that on, but it might be a question for finance to just look at where'd that money go. And because we did have an application and we did give a grant for the full amount that they asked for the purposes of an electric fencing workshop. It might not have been you, it might have been the previous.
It might have been, or might have been a separate group. There are a couple of volunteer groups, like a bear network, things like that. I also wanted to thank you for, maintaining the Sunshine Coast Fruit Tree Project because, the unharvested fruit trees this year became a major problem. They almost seconded, the backyard chickens. So they were like, really, garbage was still the #1 call, but the unharvested fruit trees were the second problem. May I address Lee? So in Gibsons, a lot of the problem areas in Gibsons are lower Gibsons. There is a lot of wildlife that does habitate the bluff, but there's also a lot of use of Ingalls Trail up and behind there. And then another problem area is the Farnham Road complex area that backs onto Gibson Elementary School. Creekside has had a few issues because they have the ravine behind them, but the main areas seem to be the Ingalls Trail area from Upper Gibsons heading down to Lower Gibsons.
Yeah, that we have had some issues. Let's see, Shirley Macy Park, Langdale School, and Grantham's between the two ravines, and I just wanted to check how those were doing this year because
Didn't
we've
receive
done some
Yeah.
education.
Didn't receive a lot of calls for those areas this year, you know, and even doing the garbage tagging in Langdale, just really good management by households there. You know, the coyotes may be a little bit of a problem there, but yeah, it all starts with effective management. So far less calls coming in from there.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Did we hear, should we put forward a motion to have a status report on the, to receive? No, I'm sorry, to get a status report on the funding that we provide for the electric fence workshop. Okay, seconder? Okay, any comments, all in favor? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Motion to
Enjoy your
To
winter.
receive the presentation. Thank you. Thank you.
And, there's one other thing. I'm not clear whether you'd like more funding for next year. Is that part of this presentation, or will we see that later?
Well, as always, it continues every year. We never really know which communities are going to be awarded these programs. There's a lot of competition for these programs now. And last year, the word didn't come through from the Ministry of Environment till the end of April, and we started May 1st. So yeah, today would be wonderful if we could cover the fact that I would be here asking for your graciousness to consider sponsoring the program again for next year and being a valued partner.
Director Tredick.
Yeah, just when would we have any certainty about that?
Well, the applications usually go in before mid-April. Jeremy would know more about that than I would, Jeremy Valeriat. But we really didn't know till the end of April
Okay.
whether the funding came through. And this was a community-funded one. It was the $2,500 plus in-kind use of office space. So that's, you know, a lot of photocopying and different materials for display boards and presentations. So that's a great contribution.
Director Norr.
I suggest we send a letter to the Ministry of Environment thanking them for the funding for our Bear Aware program, and we certainly hope they will continue next year.
Seconding?
And attach the report we've just received.
Right. Seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Passed. Further motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we ask staff to again submit the appropriate application for the funding, because that would not be just by letter. There would be some kind of forms to fill out.
Second. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Director Turnbull.
And I refer the matter of Kim's request for the 2,500 to round one of our budget. I'm not sure what function it falls into myself, wherever it goes. That would be my motion.
All. Thank you.
And no need for Kim to come back for this. Then Kim will not need to come back to report further for this purpose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Have a wonderful winter.